Hi, I'm Shelly Jo, and welcome to my show. What's on your adult Christmas list and beyond? Let's get started. Shelly Jo here with Shelly Jo Hypno Aminos, also known as Amino Acid Lady. It's Wake Up Wednesday with Shelly Jo. As I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I had this thought because, and I didn't know how to look it up on the internet. I thought I was looking up the right thing. And it brought up a lot of really different things. What I was looking for is, when you get a little a a little excitement about a possibility. Or you think to yourself, I want to do this. And you start to create a goal. And then you're so excited that you go to the people that are closest to you and you say, guess what? I have this idea. I have this goal. And they proceed to tell you all of the many reasons why that goal is not going to work. It's going to take too long. You don't have enough information and blah, 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 right? And then your excitement goes from yay to, oh. And then you go to somebody else and they might think that's a good idea, but did you think about dot, dot, dot? And all of a sudden your really cool dream has been squashed. And it makes you feel like, oh, why should I do that? It's not going to work. Start to get those little doubts in your mind. Can't do this. It's not going to work. It's going to fail. Funny thing about failure. Many times when I'm working with my clients and I'm listening to them and the things that they're saying, and they're like, I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to fail. And I'm like, really? Well, have you ever failed before? Well, yeah. Did you learn from failing? Well, not. You should. Not should, but Anyway, and it actually comes down to the fact that we've already failed many times. And so we know what failure feels like. Sometimes it feels like a slap on the hand, or like you put your hand on a hot stove and you're like, I don't want to do that again. Which creates these underlying stories of it's not safe to create something new. I'm going to fail at it, right? We know what failure feels like. So is it really failure of the fear of failure, or is it the fear of success? Think about that for a minute. There's some people who are afraid to step out into doing something new. It's because they haven't, they don't see the pathway clearly. They're stepping into the unknown. And so the fear that of actually success, not knowing what it feels like. I felt that before. I felt like oh, what would it feel like if I started actually becoming successful at something? There's this thing that's called secondary gain. And what that looks like is you've got all these great reasons of why you want to do something, why you want to reach this goal. It's going to be so wonderful. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. But what is the secondary reason of why you're not doing it? That's the part that you want to be able to look at and say, okay, am I sabotaging my success because of these underlying issues? It's funny, I do this activity with my clients. I have them I take a piece of paper, and on one side I'll say, all right, I want you to think of this goal. I want you to think of what this looks like. And I want you to think of, let's say that all the things that you're wanting, you've got exactly what you want. And I say, it's not as important to me of what it is, but I want to know what would be the best thing about it happening, coming to pass. And they'll say, oh, it'll be wonderful. I can reach my goal. I can help so many people. Okay. Well, what's the best thing about that? Well, I'll be stronger and I will have financial success. Okay. What's the best thing about that? Well, I won't be sad. And I'll say, okay, now hold on. Let's go to the positive. I'll feel happy. I'll feel accomplished. I'll feel like I've reached my goal. Okay, what's the best thing about that? And I go down as many as I can get them to go until they're just like, I that would be what it would be. It'd be amazing, right? Sometimes it's like 4 levels, sometimes it's 7, somewhere around there. By doing that, what it's doing is it's getting somebody to think a little bit off the surface of why they want what they want. And coming down so you can really get to the core reason of why somebody wants to do what they're doing or what that looks like. And then on the other side of the paper, I'll say, all right, now that we know what would be the best thing about it, and I'll read through what they are. The next thing I say is, I'm going to ask you this really weird question. What would be the worst thing about having all this stuff come to pass? And that catches them off guard because they're like, well, there would be nothing. It would be amazing. I'm like, so then I tell them, okay, but if there wasn't something stopping you, you'd already be there. You'd already have it. So what is on this side? Well, it would take too much of my time. Okay, what would be the worst thing about that? Well, I would have time with my family. All right, what's the next thing about that? Well, I might hurt my relationships. Okay, what's the worst thing about that? Well, then I might be alone. Well, what's the worst thing about that? Well, then I might feel defeated. Well, what's the worst thing about that? So when you can see the difference, then you can see is, are these the worst over here outweighing the best over here? And if it is, then this is your underlying story that is stopping you and keep you from moving forward. Gives you some insight. And so it's not necessarily not a bad thing for somebody to give you an opinion about your goal. But when they poop on your goal and they start to destroy your excitement and that imagination, it's not very helpful. I had a friend of mine who was looking at writing a book. And, well, to collaborate on a book. and I've done this before, so I understand what it looks like. And I remember when I was so excited to write this book. I thought, it was my book, From Crazy to Calm, Natural Ways to Boost Your Mental Health. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to collaborate with all these really cool people who are specialized in their own modality in energy healing? Because when I was introduced to energy healing, I didn't know anything about it. I thought it was cool, but I didn't understand it. And so I was like, I want to learn like all I can about energy healing 101. And I was super excited because it didn't make sense to me. So I decided, you know what? Maybe I should write a book for other people who are wondering what are these different modalities, and how can they help me, and how can I use them for my clients, get a better understanding. So I got super excited. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have like 30 people be in my book. So at first I put it out there. I was like, I'm gonna reach out to these people, and they're gonna want to be on my book. They're gonna want to write a story. And so at first I'm like, I just want you to help me write the book, but you don't have to pay anything. Because I didn't want to inconvenience them or make them, they were doing me a favor to help me create this book with a chapter. And then I talked to somebody else who had done this collaborating on a book, and she's like, no, it costs money to write a book. And so it's silly to do all this work. They get a chapter in your book. They get to say they're an author because they've authored something in a book. And you're going to do all this work. And some people have paid thousands of dollars to have one chapter in a book just to say that they're an author. Well, that didn't feel right to me, except for charging that kind of money. But I did think to myself, I thought, well, you know what? You're right. I had already written one book, and I knew how much it costs to write a book. I knew all of the expenses that went into it, of an editor and somebody to make the cover, and somebody to format it and get it all done, and like the ISBN numbers, you have to have a number for your book, all that stuff. So then I decided, well, all right, I'm going to charge something to help with the cost. So I'm going to charge $300 so that somebody can um, get a chapter and put it in my book, and then I'll give them $5 when they get done, which would have cost me like, I don't know, $50 or something. So excited. But then I go out to people and say, okay, I know I told you you're going to be free, but I really realized that it's going to take a lot for me to put this book together, and it's going to cost me some money. So I'm going to ask everybody to pay $300. And a few of the people are like, no, I don't want to do it. I was kind of bummed because I was like, oh. And then I had other people say, well, what are you going to pay me to be in your book? I'm like, well, I'm not going to pay you anything because I'm getting your information out there. You get to promote what you do, and you'll be in this book. And so they started to squash my dream a little bit. And finally I had to say, no, I'm not listening anymore. And we had 15 chapters. The book was amazing. The people in the book loved it. It was so much fun to put it together. But I had to get through those people that like to squash your dreams and your goals. And you know, for whatever reason. And then I got to the point where I was like, yeah, I think I'm done getting other people's approval on what I'm going to do with my life. And I was telling my friend, I was like, if if every time I had an idea, I had stopped because somebody else had poo-pooed my idea, I wouldn't have done anything. I wouldn't be a hypnotherapist. I wouldn't have taken the amino acid class. I definitely would not have my own amino acid supplements. I would not have written my first book. I would not have written my second book. I wouldn't have got my master's degree. And I just sent in my dissertation for my doctorate. And I definitely would not have done that because there was opposition in each of the steps along the way. Opposition in all things. Right? And sometimes it's the people that are the closest to you who are the ones who poo-poo the idea the biggest. Which makes it harder because you trust their opinion. And but I finally got the point that I'm like, yeah, I'm not listening anymore. I'm not gonna allow somebody else to poo-poo my dreams and my desires. It's made a huge difference. Well, when I put in that information in my phone today, it came up with lots of different things because I couldn't figure out what that word was when somebody poops on your dreams, or whether they're called a dream sucker or a goal sucker. And it brought up a lot of different things when it came to that. So there's like a song called The Dream Sucker. And then it was like, okay, then I was like, okay, so they poop on your dreams. Well, then that brought up a lot of crazy stuff. But I found something, I was like, this is really helpful. I want to share with you what I learned. It was by Connie Habish, called Have Your Emotional Poop. I thought, okay, that's kind of an odd way to say things. And it was kind of off on what I was leaning towards, which is what I just talked about. But I was like, okay, I'm going to explore what that means. I'm just going to read you the start of it. It says, I know it's crude, but it's true. Just like we need to poop out what we eat, we also need to poop out our emotions. Here's the why and how. Think about that for a minute. What does that mean? Emotions process and digest the experiences of life. Our emotions are the way we process and respond to the energies of life. Our system digests everything we experience, and therefore we also have emotional waste products, just like we have food waste that comes through our bowels. So it's healthy. It's healthy to have a bowel movement every day because we've digested the food we're not using anymore, and it leaves our body because it's no longer nourishing. Most of the time, we're not even aware that this is going on until we get to that point, right? We know when we're hungry and we know when we have to go to the bathroom. Well, similarly, we're digesting experiences and having emotions about them all the time, even when we're not aware of it. We don't know when we long for connection, when we're feeling hurt, or when joy is bursting forth. But there are there are more subtle emotions that course through us, also having an effect on us. So then what is an emotional poop? So emotional poop is bringing to the consciousness what we're feeling, giving a healthy meaning and expression, and letting it go. If we avoid the process, we can have a backlog of emotional stuff stuck within us. This can create emotional toxicity, resentments. So if we're holding on to anger, anxiety, if we don't deal with our fear or despair, if we keep running from our sadness, a lot of times we get this little trigger, something comes up and we go, oh, I don't want to deal with that. Makes me sad. Ooh, I don't want to deal with that. Makes me angry. So what do is we stuff these emotions. And we stuff them, and we stuff them, and we stuff them. Until you can't stuff anymore. Kind of like when you eat and you eat and you eat and you eat, and then you're like, I don't feel very good, right? And it's gonna come out somehow. It's the same thing here. And it says it needs to happen regularly to let it go. Not every day, but it's essential to check in on yourself and see, okay, what am I feeling? And are there some lingering emotions that I haven't been addressing and want to release it? Because emotions are just part of life. Now, I already talked about what a false mood is. And there's a difference in a false mood and a true emotion. False moods keep us stuck. True emotions move us forward. When we're angry and there's a reason for it, injustice or somebody's hurt your feelings or anger is normally a secondary emotion. It means there's something underneath it. But anger can move you forward. Anger moved me into creating a business that could help people not have to go through what I went through. When my daughter was struggling with anxiety, it turned to addiction. A false mood of anger is that feeling that says, I am angry. Somebody cuts you off, you get angry, and then you're still angry a few hours later, and you don't know why you're angry. That's a false mood. All right. So what we want to do is how to have emotional poop. Number one is take inventory of how you're feeling right now. That's pretty simple. Check in and think to yourself, okay, what am I feeling? How am I feeling right now? So come and go with anything that's going in your mind. What is being left unsaid? So what is something that know that it's important, it needs to be addressed, but you're not? The things that we hold inside of us that we would say to somebody that lead us to the emotions. Once we recognize the feeling that you want to express, you can determine how to the best to address it, either directly with the person or by continuing to explore yourself and what it is doing to affect yourself. Move your body. What does it feel like right now? Can you stomp it out? Can you jump up and down? Can you reach your arms to the sky? Can you collapse on your back? Let your body move spontaneously in a way that will help you release that emotion. It was interesting. We had our hypnothon on Saturday. I'm teaching my hypnotherapy class. And emotions can be left residual in a room. And everyone's different. But we were doing hypnosis after hypnosis, and finally it was like, wow, this room feels heavy. Because all the emotions that we had worked on with other people that had come in for hypnosis sessions, it felt like we needed a broom to swish it out, to open the windows and lift the air up and get the emotional energy moving out of that room. And I just had to breathe. It was like you had to take a moment to walk out of the room, get that energy out of there, get it flowing. Emotions and energy get stuck. And that's what it felt like. It's all stuck. So we all just kind of instantaneously walked out of the room, walked outside, got some air, cleared the energy, and came back, and we were ready to do it again. Put on the dance music. Related to the movement, there may be a song. Put it on. Let yourself dance. Dance out the anger, the nervousness, of the deep desires. Punch or kick or growl or let it out. When no one's watching and it just feels good to move your body. The other thing you can do is scribble. Sit down and just scribble. Or doodle. I'm a big doodler. A lot of times my doodles look the same, but they're usually flowing and circles, and it's when you can express your emotions, but you're not really creating a work of art. You're just allowing yourself. You can explore colors, shapes, movement, get some markers, some crayons, just even a pen, and just start writing. Not thinking of what you're doing, just start spontaneously doodling. Play with the more pressure, the intensity. Just give yourself, your hand, the chance to allow it to flow. Get the feelings out. The other thing is you can journal. Journal is effective. You sit down and you can just write in a notebook your thoughts. Get it on the paper. So it's an emotional poop out of those emotions and those thoughts. Just it clears your brain. It's pretty powerful. Offer them to the divine. So emotional poop out can be added to your spiritual practice. So, you can take a moment to pray, acknowledge your feelings. Hey, I'm feeling this. Offer it to the spirit out loud. I'm going to give this frustration to you. I'm going to offer this to you. A lot of time that happens in a hypnosis state. Because in hypnosis, we're following that emotion. That leads us to where somebody is stuck. And when we can acknowledge that emotion and what part it has played in our life and how it's kept us stuck, because when you feel that emotion, the situation might seem different, but you feel it in the same place. Whether it's in your gut, whether it's in your shoulders, whether it's in your neck. I've had a client who felt like he had this horseshoe stuck around his neck, weighing him down. You literally can feel that stuck emotions. So when you acknowledge that where it's at and you can address it, then you can give it to a higher power. You can give it to God. You can put it in a box and send it downstream. You can blow it up, whatever that is, but you're releasing that emotion. You're pooping it out to clear it. And you're going to surrender to something bigger than you. You write it down on a piece of paper. You can rip it up. You can burn it. By letting it go, you're letting go of that residual, all that extra emotion that isn't doing you good. It's keeping you stuck. And the more you get stuck, the more this emotion just compounds on. Instead, have an emotional poop. That's it for the day. I'm Shelly Jo. Shelly Jo Hypno-Aminos, also known as Amino Acid Lady. Go to my website, hypnoaminos.com. Reach out to me, Shelly Jo, at hypnoaminos.com if you need help with your emotional poop. Keep smiling. Make it a great day. Life matters. Your life matters. Strive Thrive Alive 2025. Live boldly. Mwah. Bye.